Have you ever been sitting in a traffic jam for hours, start daydreaming and thinking about how awesome it would be if your car could just fly, you could take off and get out of that mess? Well, my next guest found himself in that position, but unlike all of us, he actually did something about it. Doron Merdinger is a fascinating gentleman, an Israeli-born entrepreneur who started Doroni Aerospace based on this exact idea. He wanted to build a flying car, and he's done it. He has built the H1X, which is a next-generation flying car that looks very similar to what you would envision if a Tesla could fly. He and I have a fantastic, interesting conversation about where he's from, how he got here, and how in the world he built a flying car that's about to change the transportation industry. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Boundary Breakers is brought to you by Carter and Clark. Thanks so much again for being on. Could you give us just a couple of minutes on your background, where you were born, family life, just sort of up and through kind of education, if you don't mind?
Yeah, well, I was born in Israel way back. Born to a family of Holocaust survivors. My father passed away when I was 16. I am the third child. Since there was a lot of tension in my family, bringing that history of, the Holocaust, I probably, as I look at it backwards, there was, I had this asthma, bronchitis at that point that was cold. So I was very protected by my family. So I most of the time stayed in the room, and I had this was my lab. This was my wonderland, if you will, my fantasy place. And I remember waking up at night. I was always still am creating. This is my role. Everybody has a mission in life. This is my mission, to create. So I was fixing, building, breaking. A joke that I had this agreement with my mother that I can take apart everything in the house as long as they put it back together before father comes home. At one point, I remember there was this Star Wars movie started. So my father has this crystal, a very expensive crystal chandelier, and every day that he came home, he saw it smaller and smaller because I used to take the crystals out, imagining I have lasers and stuff, and
Yeah.
So this is what I was doing. I was creating from day one. I didn't make much of it, although I won, awards. People, if it was from painting, drawing, sculpturing, creative with Lego, right? Lego started, maybe electric motors started then. When I was 12, I probably had one of the first personal computers. It was a TI 99 Texas Instrument. And there was always this thing that my father used to say, when we go to a toy store or whatever, like he knows, he knows. Just ask him. I don't know. He'd ask him. So even when they brought the first VC, a video into our house, and it came without manuals, and he goes like, "Don't worry, he will take care of it." So I was always comfortable with new technologies and creative, and this was my world. I studied microelectronics computers in high school, as my father saw this talent in me. This is where all the startup, there's a startup nation about Israel, so this is where the startup started. And then I was in the Air Force using drones and information or advanced technologies at that time. I'm not a pilot. I was more on the intelligence side of it. After that, at that point, my father passed away when I was in high school. So for university, I started in San Diego, moved to Israel, San Diego, and I graduated from NYU Stern School of Business in finance with honors. Then start work at a family business that my father left. I found myself managing a 220 people factory in Israel and Turkey, and also stores, and it was a big silverware at that time. I started, for marketing, and then I became a CEO, although my older brother was 11 and a half years older than me, but I had that, knowledge that I gained through studying through the university, but also because of my nature, or I was able to manage people and bring more creative. So we took the factory from just traditional similar to more advanced at that time CNCing and other computer systems. Then I left, started my own business, developing new products. This was my role. And at that point, it was over 20 years ago. 3D printing was really, there was only, I think, one printer, SolidScape, if I remember correctly. So I bought that. It was very expensive. It was $70,000. It was like was very impressive machine. You could not even sneeze next to it because it would stop working. So we created a whole room around it. And then I started dealing into three-dimensional developing, designing. Today, we live in that world as normal. This is how everybody's comfortable in designing. But at that point, that time, nobody did that. Almost nobody knew about it. So we were at that cutting edge. I'm always found myself always attracted to new technologies, materials. So this is my go-to: design technologies and material, and this is where I feel comfortable. At one point, we got married, uh, 3 kids, and I applied for special. It's called O1 visa talent in the U.S. I was lucky enough to be accepted and get a green card, and I'm a U.S. citizen. That paved the way for me to move with a family here, um, and started selling the products that I developed in. Uh, but I had a eureka moment. I mean, as a kid, me and probably millions or billions of other people knew flying cars were coming. For me, it was always there. Um, I read in some movies and, by Jules Verne, this enigmatic writer that talked about, flying to the moon even before the moon was something you even could think that, or diving in the submarine. So then, fell off of the science fiction movies next to Chi Bang Bang, Jetsons before that, Back to the Future. All this, we were dreaming about it. So I knew they were coming. For me, this was a living reality. The question is really how they're going to happen. And when people thought about jets, I always knew jets are complicated. They're not sustainable for our daily life. And probably by 2014, um, I started seeing those new technologies, the drone technologies, how easy it flies, how easy to control it, stable. And I had a eureka moment when a kid was playing with a drone when I was stuck in a traffic jam. And I was like, boom, we got it. This is how flying cars are going to happen. Really, this is the propulsion system. In the 2016, it started as a garage project, literally a garage project. I've all told my family, even created the frame, put my family to see the structural integrity still there. My small kids sitting on the top of the frame. Start hiring aerospace engineers, at that time from Ukraine, and other engineers from the US, the UK, and created this team of I call it skunk works because nobody knew about, flying cars. So I had to drone expert, battery expert. So I started putting them together to understand the world around it. And yeah, 2017, 18, started creating this thing. So it
Wow.
was just, yeah, at the beginning, I said to my wife, it's going to cost me $50,000 probably. Ending up selling my house to finance that. Crazy enough to do it, but I have a crazy wife like me, a believer.
That's great.
And so I spoke, with everybody. I'm always trying to be as much as transparent as I can to that what I know. But at one point, you have to do that leap of faith. And there's a lot of challenges, have been and will be. So it's balancing, always balancing. I think this is the biggest, if I can say, the biggest personal struggle is always the mind. The mind plays tricks on you. And for me as a creative person, coinciding the mind with the actual reality, what I see here and what I see out there, is putting it together and endure the situation and stay present all the time. This is one of the biggest challenges that I've been facing personally.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. there's a lot in there that would love to hear about. So you mentioned in 2014, you started to see the drone technology sort of come on board, and sort of what I took as sort of the first kind of mass production of these steady flying, balanced, machines that started to show up. And then 2016, you said you had a eureka moment for how it would work. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the congestion growing, and building more roads into major cities, just destroying our ecosystem. Obviously it wasn't sustainable. At one point it will stop. Even if you want to build more roads, there's just no way you can build them. I mean, interestingly enough, here in Miami, they're building them one on top of the other, which is ridiculous. Why do you need that when you already have the technology to have endless roads right up in the sky and endless highways? So for me, I saw, there were aircraft and there's helicopters and all very nice, but these are technologies that already exist for 100 years. I mean, things need to change, and you see the EVs, and you already see that the new development, because if you're looking at a regular car, I mean, combustion engine, it's so complex. It's like, it's like those unique timepieces, master of complications ones, which cost like millions of dollar watches, but they're really nice to say I have them, but they're not practical for daily use. And I think what happened is those technologies are already obsolete. And I like to say, there are things which are already dead, but nobody announced them. Somebody needs to say this is done. So, using all these complexities of a car that has so many moving parts, so many different materials that are in contradiction to each other. For example, liquids with electricity and sparks and fumes and combustion and vibration and rubber and aluminum and carbon. I mean, these are all things. It's a work of art how we're able to put them together, but it's like too complex already. You go into it's a high-end car, all these bells and whistles. At one point it's an overload, overkill. You have to start stripping them down. And what I like, for example, in seeing a Tesla, it's a whole way of new thinking of a car. It's just you don't. The only thing really is in common is, okay, there's a passenger on the left side. This needs to drive and stop, and there are four wheels. But everything else is totally built from scratch. And I think what happened to aircraft, cars, all these technologies, they're all the time working because people are not stepping outside and say, okay, can we do it from a different perspective? Just can we dare just stop for a second and just do it right from the start? I think this is what led me to do what we are doing today, because an aircraft by itself, either it's a helicopter or a regular plane, already so complex, and obviously they're going to exist. It's not like we're replacing them. Perish the thought. From our understanding is all form of transportation started as niche players, airmail, trains, the cars, but they started as an issue, but they became the main form of transportation. This is what's going to happen with EV tolls, which is the evolution of the name flying car. But you don't need roads, so essentially you don't need to drive. Maybe you need to taxi, but you don't need to drive. So this is what I see. And so we took a step back, and instead of like rigid or this aluminum frame with all rivets, which is so complex, which is it's 100 years of existence, let's do it from carbon fiber, monocoque, Formula One style, right? Rigid, strong. Obviously, it's lighter, stronger. Motors, you don't need all these complex systems, because if you look at the car, this is what's kind of interesting to see the Tesla and a regular car. So when you drive, you are basically have one mechanism, and when you stop, you have a different mechanism, and it's opposing forces. when you use, like example, Tesla, you started to brake already when you take, your hands off the accelerator, because it starts charging. It becomes, a charger instead of, the motor becomes a charger in a way. So when you look at a system, it has to be more fluent, more, how should I say that, more complete, that it regenerates each other. So the question is, how will you take all these complexity out of the equation? So instead of starting to take the complexities, we said, let's redesign everything afresh, built on a drone technology. Let's say a quadrocopter as an example. So we expanded to octocopter because we wanted redundancies. Let's say if there's one propeller will malfunction, they will have a compensation there. We added ducted system, which makes us unique from the rest of the pack, because ducts have four main advantages. First, safety. These propellers are turning at high RPM. They will slice you, cut you like a sushi, and you can hardly hear them. It's all electric. So we have a protection against that. Also, flying forward, reduce bird strike, which is a big thing in aircraft. Another thing, ducted fans are more efficient size-wise, because you basically condense on the energy, all the air downwards, instead of having dissipation of turbulences at the tip of the wings. Noise levels are lower, which is important to use, in urban community, and also it looks cleaner. Okay, so this is our go-to. We added lift surfaces like wings to basically to assist in flying forward to get a better range, because just have a quadrocopter, you're just sitting on the propellers all the time, and then the energy. Landing gear, another thing we did. Landing gear is a big thing. Creates a lot of drag in a regular aircraft. So if you keep it out, it's a drag. If you fold it in, it's another mechanism, takes more place. It becomes more complex, point of failure. So we just kept it out and we created a wing out of it. So it's a functional thing. It's not just that's not just helping the landing, but it's a function. It also assists. There's electric motor hub, so you can taxi with it. So we're looking at everything here as a perfect Swiss Army knife. It's a small machine, high quality, do the mission, multiple of missions that it can do, affordable as much as possible. Obviously, this is an open-double technology. So this is how we look at a machine to perfect that. And this is how we came up with the H1X after 12 months of iterations that back and forth.
Yeah. That's great. And look, I'll for the audience, I'll see if we try to put an image of the H1X up right when we get to this point, so that the audience can see it. What about so much infrastructure has been built around the internal combustion engine, the automobile, gas stations, and interstates, roads. What are your thoughts on how much space does it need to land? Where would that happen? And then what does the future look like let's assume that all everyday transportation switched to this type of transportation. What would that look like sort of from an everyday perspective?
Yeah, so I don't see, again, it's a transition. It's not like it's a cutoff point and
Sure.
then boom, no cars. So it's not going to replace car. I always call it situation like this. It's called I call it Italian parking. When you go into Rome, and there's two cars next to the building, and there's a small space between them. So the Italians will go backwards and push a little bit the rear car, and then will go forward, push out the front car. So it's and then they expand the market. So I definitely see that thing happening. I mean, there are so many use cases for this machine. Essentially, you'll be able to take off and land from the place where the landowner will give you permission, right, to take off from his land and land. Also, if there's other city municipal laws, I believe these laws will be favorable, because these machines are much quieter. They're nothing like a helicopter. A helicopter makes a lot of the noise because of the combustion engine and the big props. There are ways, it's already proven, to make the props designed in a way to produce much lower noise levels than of the helicopter. And the motors you cannot hear them. There are no gases, right? And since this is a very easy to control fly-by-wire machine, much like a drone, it's easy to land safely. And the whole design, the whole concept is reduce points of failure and make it very easy for the pilot who does not need to come from a background like that to be able to control it. So this is how we see that shape up. So just to give the audience a little bit of more content, in the world of eVTOLs, the flying cars, so-called, there are two big difference categories. The main category, which raised most of the funds, I believe there are 6 publicly traded companies, are for the air taxi. These are ride sharing. These are big vehicles. They're not for sale. I think $15 million. You essentially take a car to a vertiport or a helipad or an airport, and you go and you take that ride sharing as a service. Then you land and you have to take another car. So in our case, we are selling the machine, right, as so for private use, personal use. So we are essentially the last mile solution. Essentially, we are short range. So the FAA, because it's not commercial, because doesn't have that big weight and the amount of passengers. We're talking about a roadster, 2-seater style. This is how Tesla started. Again, the level of certification is lower and less complex as the air taxi ones. That's why the machine can be relatively more cost effective and affordable. The helicopter or single engine aircraft, but it can do much more than that, much more. Safety, rescue people before and after a hurricane, first responders, somebody injured, traffic, a situation the police department need for assessment, rescue, enemy territory for the military reconnaissance, engineering, go over service a high current electric wire. You cannot get close with a helicopter to a high electric wire because of the sparks that can ignite the fume inside the helicopter, for example. Service, walls, between countries, yachts, land on yachts. So there's so many tourism, farming. We have close to 500 pre-order requests. People are, wants to be, the farmers wants to check the crops. So there's so many of them already out there, opportunities for this machine. And I believe this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that was going to be my next question was, I fully understand that it's certainly not just going to be a quick transition, or excuse me, just a quick, flipping the switch, right? It would be a very potentially lengthy sort of adoption period before this was ubiquitous. And then you just mentioned several use cases. So would it be fair to say that for current use cases that currently utilize helicopters, that this would be a potential substitute?
In some cases, yes.
Okay. And so from the private side, I mean, who do you see being the sort of the initial target audience for like the early who do you see as the early adopters for this? Is it, for example, somebody that works on Wall Street but lives in Greenwich, Connecticut, and so lands at the New York helipad and goes to the office? What is your vision?
Yeah. So there are a lot of them. As I said, for example, we have this I mentioned. We have a doctor. He lives in an airport community. Okay, he lives in an airport. So there's close to 800 in the U.S. So this is a perfect machine. Doesn't need a runway. Doesn't make noise. We'll probably start from suburban areas more because less complex than flying inside the city actually. Probably authorities like as I said, mentioned FEMA, police departments as well. People who can afford these vehicles, right? This is a $400,000 vehicle, and they already have the Lamborghini, the Ferraris, and unfortunately, I know my goal is to make that thing accessible, affordable to as many people as possible. But still, it's an aircraft. Still, it's a novel technology. So with time, we are definitely targeting a lower end cost machines. So there's enough space to start with what we're doing all together.
Gotcha. All right, two additional quick questions. So Where are you guys in terms of? Actually, let me ask this one first. Let's say that I bought one of these and I was that doctor. If that doctor bought one, say, how complex is the regulatory environment from the user's point of view? Do you have to file a flight plan? Can you just up and go whenever you want? What does that look like?
So to what we know now, it should be somewhere around the light sport aircraft type of license. They're going to, obviously they're studying it, and they will study it with companies like us. So the rules are not set yet. But because this is a fairly easy way to control, and you can come to our facility and test the simulator, it's really much easier to fly than anything else out there, including helicopters. It's really like one joystick and a couple of buttons, and that's it, because the machine will do most of the planning for you, will not let you do crazy stuff. So it really depends if you're flying to an airport with a tower without.
I got
This is yet to be studied, but the FAA is on top of it, and companies like us are assisting the FAA through companies, ASTM, for a group like ASTM.
Gotcha. All right. And last question: if I excuse me, if I was interested and wanted to buy one, are you guys in full on production, or are you still testing the prototypes? And if I wanted to learn more, where do I go to learn more?
Yeah, so you can learn more on www.doroni.io. We're accepting orders. We are not in production yet. We're working on the go-to-market product. We expect deliveries to be somewhere at the end of, somewhere at the beginning of 2027. 20 will giving us 25, 26 to complete the go-to-market product with the certification. This is our target.
Excellent. And so you can go to Doroni.io, DORONI.io, and get on the list and put a deposit down?
Yeah, you can put a deposit, and you can also be part of the company if you wish to invest. They'll direct you to a page on Start Engine where we are currently raising the funds, the fourth round.
That's great. That's fantastic. Is anything jumped up that in terms of a challenge or a potential hiccup that you are concerned about being insurmountable, or is this just a matter of you making it happen?
Yeah, we're making it happen every day. It's a new day. We believe in what we're doing is we make good progress. It seems to be that obviously there are always mental challenges more than everything else.
Yeah.
This is it. As an entrepreneur, you're probably aware of that.
Absolutely. Well, look, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I love the initiative, the boldness, the belief. We need people like you and Elon Musk and all of you guys that are inventing and changing the world for the better. And so, look, who knows? I think 20 years from now, after I get out of, if I own one, I'll be thinking about this conversation and can thank you for helping push it forward. But Doron, thank you so much. Is there anything that I didn't ask or that you would like to mention or talk about before we hop off?
I think we covered everything, and I appreciate your time and your questions. And, we're looking to make that a reality. Appreciate that.
I love it. Well, hopefully we drive some interested folks over to your site to check it out and maybe invest.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you so much. Take care. Don't forget, everybody, you can find Boundary Breakers in a lot of places. You can watch our episodes on the Boundary Breakers YouTube channel, or you can listen to each podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of the other major podcasting platforms. Thanks for listening.